In our modern world, the social landscape is shaped by a blend of economic forces, technology, and the sprawling influence of capitalism. These elements have naturally imposed a certain order on our society, capturing the attention of humanity. However, this fixation on technology and capitalism has led us to overlook other aspects of our social organism. For a society to truly thrive, it is essential to not only acknowledge, but also actively engage with these neglected branches. Achieving effectiveness through human consciousness in these areas is crucial for the overall health of the social organism. To shed light on the driving forces impacting our social structure, let's draw a comparison. It's important to note that this is merely a comparison, meant to assist our understanding of the social organism's path to recovery. Taking the intricacies of the human organism as an example, we find three complementary systems, each operating somewhat independently. The first system revolves around the nerve and sense faculties, forming a centralized area in the natural human organism, akin to a head organism. This system is vital for our perception and understanding of the world. Moving on, the rhythmic system emerges as the second member, encompassing respiration, blood circulation, and all rhythmic processes within the human organism. It adds a unique cadence to our existence. Finally, the third system encompasses everything related to metabolism, organs and functions that play a crucial role in maintaining the overall functioning of the human organism. It's a web of interconnected elements, harmonizing to sustain our well-being. Understanding this triad of systems is pivotal in recognizing the intricate dynamics of the human organization. Each system, when properly coordinated, contributes to the holistic functioning of the human organism, ensuring a state of health and balance. In my book, Von Seelenratzeln, I've endeavored to sketch the triformation of the natural human organism. I firmly believe that biology, physiology, and the entirety of natural science will soon gravitate towards a perspective that acknowledges how the three integral members, the head system, the circulatory system, or breast system, and the metabolic system, orchestrate the processes within the human organism. They operate with a certain autonomy, revealing an absence of absolute centralization in the human organism. Each system establishes its unique connection with the external world. The head system through the senses, the circulatory or rhythmic system through respiration, and the metabolic system through the organs of nourishment and movement. While I've made an attempt to integrate knowledge derived from spiritual science into the realm of natural science in Von Seelenratzeln, I recognize that current natural scientific methods may not be advanced enough for widespread acknowledgement within scientific circles. It's an ongoing effort to bridge these perspectives. Yet this misalignment between our habitual thought processes and the inherent functioning of nature within the human organism persists. Our worldview, the way we perceive the world, hasn't entirely aligned with the inner essence of nature's functions within our bodies. Some might argue that natural science will evolve gradually, eventually embracing viewpoints like mine. However, the urgency of these matters doesn't allow for a passive wait-and-see approach. Every human mind, participating in the functioning of the social organism, needs to possess at least an instinctive understanding of what this social organism requires. For the social organism to be healthy, akin to the natural organism, a threefold organization is essential. This clarity, even if only instinctive, is crucial for the development of healthy thinking, feeling, and aspirations concerning the formation of the social organism. Since Schaffel penned his insights on the structure of the social organism, various endeavors have sought to draw parallels between the organization of a natural being, such as a human, and human society at large. The quest for the cell of the social organism, discussions on cell structure, tissues, and the like have been recurrent themes. A recent addition to this discourse is Maret's world mutation, wherein certain scientific facts and laws are transposed onto a presumed human society organism. It's essential to clarify that the approach presented here stands apart from these analogy games. Contrary to attempting a direct transplantation of scientific facts onto the social organism, the aim is for human thinking and feeling to develop an innate sense of the vital potentialities by contemplating the natural organism. This cultivated sensibility can then be applied to understanding the social organism, When one contemplates the social organism independently, akin to how a scientific investigator studies the natural organism, the seriousness of the inquiry precludes frivolous analogies. It's crucial to dispel any notion that what's proposed here involves constructing the social organism as a mere imitation of a stark scientific theory. Quite the opposite, the intent is to highlight a different perspective. The ongoing human crisis demands the emergence of certain sensitivities in each individual, nurtured through education and the school system, akin to learning arithmetic functions. What has manifested in the past through the old forms of the social organism, without being consciously absorbed by the inner life of the mind, will lose its efficacy in the future. The evolutionary impulses shaping human life at present necessitate the development of these sensitivities, just as education has long been imperative. Humanity must cultivate a healthy sense of how the social organism should function for its viability. There's a need to foster a collective feeling that participating in this organism without such sensitivities is not only unhealthy, but also antisocial. It is a call to evolve our understanding and engagement with the social fabric, recognizing the importance of a mindful and sensitive approach for the well-being of the collective. The call for socialization often echoes in contemporary discussions, but its potential impact is akin to a quack remedy unless a fundamental, instinctive understanding of the triformation of the social organism takes root in human hearts and souls. For the social organism to thrive, 3 distinct members must be methodically cultivated. The initial focus falls on the economy, a force that has conspicuously wielded influence over human society through the channels of modern technology and capitalism. This economic life demands autonomy within the social organism, akin to the relatively autonomous nervous sensory system in the human organism. Embracing all facets of commodity production, circulation and consumption, the economy emerges as a vital constituent member. The second member encapsulates civil rights and political life, embodying what was traditionally termed the state in the context of the old right state. Unlike the economy, which delves into the realms of natural needs and the commodification process, this social organism member solely concerns itself with human relations springing from purely human sources. It's imperative to distinguish between the legal rights system, focusing on human-to-human relations originating from human sources, and the economic system, dedicated to the production, circulation, and consumption of commodities. Developing a keen sensitivity to this distinction is vital. Much like the separation between the lungs processing external air and the processes of the nervous sensory system in the human natural organism, the economy and the rights member must exist as distinct entities within the social organism. This sensibility forms the foundation for a harmonious coexistence, ensuring that each member functions independently, contributing to the overall health and equilibrium of the social organism. The third member, standing independently alongside the economic and civil rights components, reveals itself in the social organism as that which aligns with spiritual life. To be more precise, avoiding vague designations like spiritual culture or everything related to spiritual life, one could express it as everything grounded in the natural aptitudes of each human individual. It encompasses what should integrate into the social organism based on the innate capacities, both spiritual and physical, of each individual. The economic system, as the first member, is concerned with elements necessary for individuals to define their relationship with the external world. The second member addresses the intricacies of human interrelationships within the social organism. On the other hand, the third system delves into everything that must flourish from the unique individuality of each person, seamlessly integrating into the social fabric. Just as modern technology and capitalism have profoundly shaped our society, it becomes crucial to heal the inevitable wounds they have inflicted on human society by aligning individuals and the human community with the 3 members of the social organism. While the economy has assumed distinct forms, exerting a potent influence through one-sided efficiency, the other 2 members have struggled to integrate themselves into the social organism with the same certainty and adherence to their own laws. Therefore, it becomes imperative for each individual in their respective spheres to contribute to the formation of a society grounded in the sensibilities described above. Solving social questions necessitates collective efforts, and every individual has a social task in the present and immediate future. The path forward lies in recognizing and fulfilling these social responsibilities, contributing to the harmonious functioning of the threefold social organism. The first member of the social organism, the economy, is primarily reliant on nature, much like how an individual's development, through education and experience, depends on the innate capacities of their spiritual and physical organisms. This natural foundation leaves an indelible mark on the economy, influencing the entire social organism. It exists inherently and remains fundamentally unaffected by any social organization or attempts at socialization. This natural base must form the bedrock of the social organism, just as the natural physical and spiritual abilities of an individual constitute the foundation of their education. Every endeavor to socialize and structure human society economically must consider this natural base. The essential primal element connecting a person to a specific piece of nature serves as the groundwork for the circulation of goods, all human labor, and every facet of cultural spiritual life. The relationship between the social organism and its natural base must be acknowledged, just as the connection between an individual and their aptitudes is considered in the learning process. Extreme cases can illustrate this point. In certain regions where bananas are easily accessible, the labor needed to transfer and convert them into consumable items is drastically less compared to the labor required for wheat in Central Europe. While such a case is an extreme example, variations in the required labor exist in various production sectors within any European society, albeit not as radically as with bananas and wheat. These differences underscore that the labor input in economic processes is conditioned by the natural base of the economy. For instance, in Germany, in regions of average fertility, the wheat yield is around 7 to 8 times the amount sown. In comparison, in Chile, the yield is 12-fold, in northern Mexico 17-fold, and in Peru 20-fold. These variations emphasize that the labor power individuals must contribute to the economic process is intricately tied to the natural characteristics of their economic foundation. The economic member of a healthy social organism constitutes a homogeneous entity, encompassing processes that commence with man's interaction with nature and extend through his endeavors to transform natural products into consumable goods. These processes, and only these, define the economic facet. This member can be likened to the head system in the human organism, influencing individual aptitudes. Just as the head system relies on the lung-heart system, the economic system is contingent on human labor. However, just as the head cannot autonomously regulate breathing, the forces governing the economy shouldn't be the same as those regulating human labor. Human engagement in economic activities is propelled by personal interests rooted in spiritual and soul needs. Effectively addressing these interests within a social organism to allow individuals to fulfill their objectives through societal collaboration and optimize economic activity is a practical question addressed within various economic frameworks. This can only occur if these interests have the freedom to assert themselves and if there exists the will and means to meet them. The origins of these interests extend beyond the economic realm, developing in tandem with the evolution of the human soul and body. The role of economic life is to establish facilities geared towards satisfying these interests. These facilities should exclusively focus on the production and exchange of commodities, goods that derive value from human needs. The value of a commodity is inherently tied to the person consuming it. Thus, the position of a commodity in the social organism differs significantly from other aspects valued by individuals within this organism. Within the economic domain, where the production, exchange, and consumption of commodities occur, a neutral perspective is essential. Recognizing the fundamental difference between interpersonal relationships involved in producing commodities for others and legal rights relationships is crucial. Deliberate consideration leads to the conviction and practical necessity that legal rights must be wholly separated from the economic sector within the social organism. The activities in facilities serving the production and exchange of commodities are not conducive to the most positive influence on the domain of human rights. In the economic sphere, one individual engages with another to serve the interests of the other, while the relationship in the realm of human rights is fundamentally distinct. One might think that the necessary distinction would be achieved by incorporating the legal element, essential in the relations between individuals engaged in the economy within the economic domain. However, such a belief lacks a foundation in reality. An individual can only truly comprehend the legal relationship between themselves and others when this relationship is not intertwined with the economic sphere, but exists in a wholly separate domain. Therefore, a distinct area must evolve in the social organism alongside the economy, independent of it, dedicated to cultivating and administering the rights element, this area being the political domain, the state. If individuals extend their economic interests into the legislation and administration of the right state, the resultant legal framework will merely reflect these economic interests. When the right state takes charge of the economy, it loses its capacity to regulate human rights effectively. Its acts and facilities, originally intended to serve the human need for commodities, become diverted from impulses aligned with human rights. A healthy social organism necessitates an autonomous political state as the second member alongside the economic sector. In the autonomous economic sector, driven by the forces of economic life, facilities will evolve to best serve the production and exchange of commodities. Simultaneously, within the political state, facilities will develop to guide mutual relations between individuals and groups in a manner consistent with human rights awareness. The viewpoint advocating the complete separation of the right state and the economy aligns with the realities of life. The same cannot be said for the perspective that merges economic and rights functions. Those active in the economic sector may possess rights awareness, but their involvement in legislative and administrative processes will genuinely derive from this awareness only within the framework of a right state, disengaged from economic matters. Such a right state, with its own legislative and administrative bodies structured according to modern rights awareness principles, will mirror democratic impulses in human consciousness. Similarly, the economic area will shape its legislative and administrative bodies based on economic impulses. The necessary interaction between the responsible individuals of the legal and economic bodies will occur similarly to how governments of sovereign states currently operate. This formation allows developments in one body to have the necessary impact on the other, fostering a more harmonious and effective coordination between the two realms. The economy operates within the dual constraints of the natural base, including climate, regional geography, and mineral wealth, and the legal conditions imposed by the state on individuals or groups engaged in economic activity. These factors delineate the boundaries of economic activity. In a healthy social organism, the legal relationships between individuals should be regulated by a right state that, like the natural base, maintains autonomy in its relationship with the economy. Throughout human history, the social organism, shaped by the machine age and modern capitalism, has witnessed economic activity expanding beyond what is beneficial for a healthy societal structure. In today's economic system, designed for the circulation of commodities, both human labour power and rights also circulate. The contemporary economic process, rooted in the division of labour, involves not only the exchange of commodities for commodities, but also the exchange of commodities for both labour and rights. For clarity, I define a commodity as anything prepared by human activity for consumption and brought to a specific locality for this purpose. While this definition may spark objections or seem insufficient to some economists, it aids in understanding what should be part of economic activity. Consider the acquisition of land through purchase. While this process may seem like an exchange of land for commodities represented by the purchase money, the land itself doesn't function as a commodity in economic life. Its position is based on the right of an individual to use it, a right fundamentally different from the relationship of a commodity producer. This relationship doesn't overlap with the distinct person-to-person dynamic emerging from someone having exclusive use of a piece of land. The owner places those who earn their livelihood on the land, or must live on it in a position of dependence. The exchange of real commodities produced or consumed doesn't engender a dependence comparable to this personal relationship. Observing this life fact impartially, it becomes evident that it must be reflected in the institutions of the entire social organism. While commodities are exchanged for other commodities in the economic sphere, the value of these commodities is determined independently of the legal relations between persons or groups. However, when commodities are exchanged for rights, the legal relations themselves are influenced. The issue is not with the exchange itself. This is an essential element of the contemporary social organism based on its division of labour. The concern arises when, through the exchange of rights for commodities, the rights themselves transform into commodities within the economic sphere. This transformation can only be averted by having facilities in the social organism exclusively dedicated to efficiently activating the circulation of commodities and, simultaneously, other facilities that regulate the rights associated with the commodity exchange process for those individuals involved in production, trade, and consumption. These rights are fundamentally no different from other personal rights that exist independently of the commodity exchange process. If I cause harm or benefit to my fellow human through the sale of a commodity, it falls into the same social category as harm or benefit, resulting from actions or omissions not directly linked to commodity exchange. Recognizing and addressing this distinction is crucial for maintaining a balanced and just social order. The individual's way of life is shaped by the collaboration of rights, institutions, and economic interests. In a healthy social organism, these influences must emanate from two distinct directions. In the economic organization, formal training, coupled with experience, should equip management with the necessary insights. Simultaneously, through the legal framework and administration in the rights organization, the required rights awareness concerning the relations among individuals or groups will be established. The economic organization facilitates the formation of cooperative associations among individuals with similar professional or consumer interests or other shared needs. These associations, grounded in associative foundations and interrelations, constitute the backbone of the entire economy. Engaging solely in economic activities, these associations find their legal basis in the rights organization. When such economic associations effectively present their interests in the representative and administrative bodies of the economic organization, there is no compulsion for them to exert pressure on the legislative or administrative leadership of the right state to achieve what cannot be attained within the economic sector. This distinction, with separate economic and legal systems, fosters a healthier social organism. Even if individuals active in the economic realm also participate in the representation of the right state, which is quite plausible, no economic influence can be exerted on the rights sector due to the clear separation of economic and legal systems. Such separation prevents the undermining of the health of the social organism, as seen when the state organization manages branches of the economic sector and representatives of economic interests shape laws to align with their concerns. Maintaining this separation is crucial for the well-being and balance of the overall social structure. Austria serves as a notable example of the amalgamation of the economic and rights sectors with the constitution it adopted in the 1860s. The representatives of the Imperial Assembly in this territorial union were elected from 4 economic branches: landowners, the Chamber of Commerce, cities, markets, industrial areas, and rural communities. This composition implies the belief that a rights system would naturally emerge by allowing economic interests to assert themselves. While the diverse forces of its many nationalities contributed significantly to Austria's disintegration, it is equally certain that a separate rights organization, functioning alongside the economy, could have facilitated the development of a society where the coexistence of various nationalities was possible. In contemporary public life, attention is often directed towards matters of secondary importance due to ingrained thinking habits that view the social organism as a uniform entity. Regardless of the electoral process employed, economic interests and impulses from the rights sector are bound to clash in representative bodies, leading to extreme social agitation. Today, the primary objective must be the imperative separation of the economy from the rights organisation. As this separation becomes a reality, each organisation can, according to its own principles, determine the best means of selecting legislators and administrators. The question of choosing such representatives, though fundamentally significant, pales in comparison to other urgent decisions that must be made. In places where old conditions persist, these new forms could be developed from them. In areas where the old has already disintegrated or is in the process of doing so, individuals or groups should take the initiative to reorganize society in the indicated direction. While expecting an overnight transformation is deemed unrealistic, even by reasonable socialists, they anticipate a gradual and relevant healing process. The necessity for a rational desire for a new social structure is apparent to every objective observer of current events amidst the historical human evolutionary forces at play today. Those accustomed to deeming only what aligns with their familiar horizons as practical may view the presented ideas as impractical. However, if one cannot shift this attitude and holds influence in some capacity, their actions will not contribute to healing, but rather perpetuate the ongoing degeneration of the social organism, akin to the deeds of like-minded individuals that have shaped current conditions. Efforts initiated by authorities to transfer certain economic functions, such as the post office and railroads, to the state must be reversed. The state should be relieved of all economic functions. Thinkers inclined to believe they are steering toward a healthy social organism often push for the nationalization of all economic means, especially those related to production. However, a healthy development necessitates economic autonomy while enabling the political state to influence economic organizations through legal processes, ensuring that individuals do not feel a conflict between their integration in the social organism and their rights awareness. To understand how these ideas are grounded in the realities of the human situation, one can examine the physical labor performed for the social organism. In the capitalist economic form, labor appears to be bought and sold like a commodity between the worker and the employer. However, in reality, the employer receives commodities from the worker created by the joint effort of both. The worker receives a portion of the equivalent value of these commodities, and the employer obtains the other portion. Capitalism tends to transform this relationship into one dictated by the economic dominance of the employer over the worker. In a healthy social organism, it becomes evident that labor cannot be paid for and should not attain economic value through equivalence with a commodity. The products of labor acquire value through equivalence with other commodities. The nature and extent of work, as well as the way an individual performs it for the well-being of the social organism, must be determined by personal abilities and the requisites for a decent human existence. This determination is only feasible if carried out by the political state independently of economic management. Through this determination, the commodity will acquire a value basis comparable to that which exists in the conditions imposed by nature. Just as the value of a commodity increases in relation to another commodity due to the acquisition of more difficult-to-obtain raw materials, its value should also depend on the kind and amount of labor expended for its production in accordance with rights legislation. In this way, the economy becomes subject to two essential conditions: the natural base, which humanity must accept as given, and the rights base, which should be established through a rights awareness rooted in a political state independent of economic interests. Managing the social organism in this way makes it clear that economic prosperity will ebb and flow according to the labor rights awareness decides to expend. In a healthy social organism, it is crucial that economic prosperity be dependent in this manner, as only such dependence can prevent individuals from being so consumed by economic life that they no longer consider their existence worthy of human dignity. The truth is, all the turmoil in the social organism stems from the feeling that existence is unworthy of human dignity. To find possible means of avoiding steep declines in prosperity as an effect of the measures taken by the rights sector, one can draw a comparison with the means employed to improve the natural base. Just as technical means can make a low-yield soil more productive, modifications in the type and amount of labor can address excessive declines in prosperity. However, These modifications should not directly emanate from economic circles, but should be rooted in the insight that can develop within a rights organization independent of economic life. Everything in the social organization, influenced by economic activity and rights awareness, is also shaped by a third source, the individual abilities of each human being. This encompasses both the greatest spiritual accomplishments and superior or inferior physical aptitudes. The introduction of what emanates from this source into the healthy social organism must be approached differently than the exchange of commodities or the influence of the state. A sound introduction can only occur if left to man's free receptivity and the impulses arising from individual abilities. The true essence of human efforts and achievements deriving from these abilities is largely deprived of its essence when influenced by economic interests or state organization. This essence can only thrive in the forces that human effort and achievement must develop on their own. Free receptivity, the only suitable means, is paralyzed when the social integration of these efforts and achievements is directly conditioned by economic life or organized by the state. There is only one possible healthy form of development for spiritual life. What it produces should be the result of its own impulses, and a relationship of mutual understanding should exist between itself and the recipients of its achievements. The conditions described for the healthy development of spiritual cultural life are not recognized today because powers of observation have been clouded by the fusion of a large part of this life with the political state. This fusion has occurred over the past centuries, and we have grown accustomed to it. While there is talk of scientific and educational freedom, it is taken for granted that the political state should administer this free science and free education. The prevailing understanding fails to recognize that in this way, the state subjects spiritual life to state requirements. There is a misconception that the state can provide educational facilities and the teachers within them can develop culture and spiritual life freely. This viewpoint overlooks the intimate connection between the content of spiritual life and the innermost essence of the human being in which it unfolds. True freedom in development can only occur when spiritual life is introduced into the social organism through impulses originating within spiritual life itself and no other external sources. The fusion with the state not only determines the administration of science and its connected aspects of spiritual life, but also influences the content itself. While direct influence on the production of mathematics or physics by the state might be limited, the history of the cultural sciences illustrates their becoming reflections of their representatives' relations to the state and state requirements. Consequently, the scientifically oriented concepts dominating contemporary spiritual life are perceived by the proletarian as ideology. The working class has observed how certain aspects of human thought are shaped by state requirements, aligned with the interests of the ruling classes. This realization has fostered the belief that all spiritual life is ideology, merely a reflection of economic organization and a battleground of conflicting interests. The despairing perception of human spiritual life dissipates when there is a recognition that within the spiritual sphere, a self-contained reality transcending the material is at play. Such a realization can only arise when spiritual life is allowed to freely develop and administer itself within the social organism. Those actively engaged in the development and administration of spiritual life possess the strength to secure its rightful place in the social organism. Art, science, philosophical worldviews, and their interconnected aspects require an independent position in human society. For in spiritual life, everything is interrelated. The freedom of one aspect cannot flourish without the freedom of the others. Although the content of mathematics and physics may resist direct influence from state requirements, their development and the perceptions of their value, as well as the impact their cultivation has on the broader spiritual life, are conditioned by these requirements when the state administers branches of spiritual life. The situation is profoundly different when a teacher, particularly in the lower school grades, follows state impulses as opposed to receiving these impulses from a self-contained spiritual life. The social democrats, inheriting the habits and customs of the ruling classes, seek to include spiritual life in social institutions based on economic principles. If successful, this path would only perpetuate spiritual depreciation. While their call for religion as a private affair is somewhat justified, their motive is not to create a space within the social organism where spiritual institutions can flourish independently and worthily. Instead, their opinion rests on the belief that the social organism should only cultivate its own necessities of life with its resources, and religious values do not fall into this category. However, a branch of spiritual life cannot thrive when unilaterally removed from the public sector if other spiritual branches remain fettered. Modern humanity's religious life can only develop its soul-sustaining strength in harmony with all other liberated branches of spiritual life. The creation and reception of spiritual life by humanity must be freely determined in accordance with the soul's necessities. Teachers, artists, and individuals directly connected to a legislature or administration originating from spiritual life itself have the capacity to inspire receptivity for their efforts and achievements. This inspiration can flourish among individuals protected by a self-reliant, independent political state, granting them the right to leisure and ensuring their freedom from being exclusively tied to work. Such an environment fosters an appreciation for spiritual values during leisure time, challenging the pessimistic notion that people would spend their free time recklessly or that illiteracy would prevail without state intervention in school attendance. Critics advocating a more utilitarian approach might argue against leaving leisure and education to free human common sense, predicting undesirable outcomes. However, such skeptics need to consider the potential transformation when the world is no longer influenced by their perspective. A truly self-contained spiritual life, unrestricted by current limitations, possesses the power to generate enthusiasm within the social organism. The pessimists, familiar with the constrained version of spiritual life, cannot fathom the enthusiastic influence it could exert. Both the political state and the economy stand to benefit from a self-administered spiritual organism. Practical economic training will achieve full effectiveness through collaborative efforts with this liberated spiritual entity. Individuals trained appropriately will infuse their economic experiences with strength derived from liberated spiritual values. Likewise, those with economic expertise will contribute to the spiritual organization, channeling their abilities where they are most needed. In the political realm, essential insights will arise through the activation of spiritual values. Workers, influenced by these values, will develop a sense of satisfaction regarding the significance of their labor within the social organism. Recognizing the necessity of meaningful organization by management for the support of the social organism, they will appreciate the cooperative relationship between their work and the organizing abilities stemming from individual human development. Within the political state framework, workers will secure rights ensuring their fair share of produced commodities, willingly contributing a suitable portion of the proceeds for the cultivation of spiritual values. In the realm of spiritual cultural life, those involved in creative pursuits will find the possibility to sustain themselves from the fruits of their endeavors. While personal spiritual practices remain an individual's affair, contributions to the social organism will be reciprocated by those benefiting from their spiritual input. Individuals unable to sustain themselves within the spiritual organization through such reciprocation may need to shift their activities to the political or economic spheres. Technical ideas originating from spiritual life naturally flow into the economic sector, whether directly from members of the state or economic sectors. All organizational concepts and forces vitalizing the economic and state domains have their roots in spiritual life. Compensation for these contributions to both social sectors will be either through the appreciative recognition of beneficiaries or through laws enacted by the political state. Tax laws, harmonizing rights awareness and economic necessities, will provide the political state with the means to sustain itself. A healthy social organism mandates the autonomous functioning of the spiritual sector alongside the political and economic sectors. Modern evolutionary forces emphasize a triformation of this organism, a conscious participation by the individual. In times when society was primarily governed by instinctive forces, the urge for such formation did not arise. However, contemporary humanity, in the depths of its soul, yearns for this orientation, and the societal movement reflects a dim manifestation of this inner striving. Toward the end of the 18th century, amid circumstances different from those of the present, a call for a new formation of the human social organism emerged from the depths of human nature. The guiding principles of this reorganization were encapsulated in 3 words: fraternity, equality, liberty. An objective observer, contemplating the realities of human social development with a healthy sensibility, can't help but sympathize with the profound meanings behind these words. However, clever thinkers of the 19th century, under different circumstances, highlighted the perceived impossibility of realizing these ideals, fraternity, equality, and liberty, in a uniform social organism. They argued that these 3 impulses would be contradictory if implemented simultaneously. It was convincingly demonstrated, for instance, that individual freedom would be compromised if the principle of equality were enforced. One is compelled to agree with those who observe these contradictions, yet simultaneously, one must harbour sympathy for each of these ideals. The root of these contradictions lies in the fact that the genuine social significance of these 3 ideals becomes apparent only through an understanding of the necessary triformation of the social organism. The 3 components are not meant to be amalgamated and centralized in some abstract, theoretical parliamentary body. Instead, each of the 3 components should be centralized within itself, and through their collaborative interaction, the unity of the overall social organism can be realized. In real-life dynamics, the apparent contradictions serve as a unifying element. A true comprehension of the living social organism can be achieved by observing its authentic formation concerning fraternity, equality, and liberty. It becomes evident that human cooperation in economic life must be grounded in the inherent fraternity within associations. In the second member, the civil rights system, focusing on purely human person-to-person relations, the goal is to actualize the idea of equality. Meanwhile, in the relatively independent spiritual sector of the social organism, the aim is to realize the idea of freedom. Viewed from this perspective, the genuine value of these 3 ideals becomes clear. They cannot be materialized in a disordered society, but only in a healthy 3-fold social organism. No abstract, centralized social structure can actualize the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity in such disarray. However, each of the 3 sectors of the social organism can draw strength from one of these impulses and positively collaborate with the other sectors. Those who ardently championed and toiled for the realization of the 3 ideas, liberty, equality, and fraternity, as well as those who later followed in their footsteps, managed to glimpse faintly the direction in which the forces of evolution in modern humanity are pointing. However, they struggled to transcend their belief in the uniform state, introducing a contradictory element into their ideas. Nevertheless, they remained loyal to this contradiction, as in the subconscious depths of their souls, the impulse toward the triformation of the social organism persisted, a triformation where the triplicity of their ideas could ascend to a higher unity. The unmistakable social realities of contemporary life call for the conscious transformation of the forces of evolution, which in modern mankind are striving toward this triformation. And that's a wrap for today's learning journey. Thank you so much for joining us and experiencing all the excitement. If you had as much fun as we did, don't forget to give that like button a big thumbs up and subscribe.